So one can say in light of our lessons there's a heaviness and a struggle with the reality of the world and our response. So if I can put it in context, that ultimately we have a choice of what kind of world that we want to create or to build. A beloved community, or to surrender to sticking our head in the sand, or our selfishness, which will breed destruction, not only on ourselves but on others. So take this time and we look through our lessons today that we are children of light, and how we are children of light means all the difference in the world. From a website entitled Lead Like Jesus, the title of the article was Calculated Risks: Why Standing Still is Not an Option. The writer writes, risk involves the possibility of injury or loss. There is an element of danger, and there are nearly endless ways to test those boundaries. I think of the early Christians, especially in those in the New Testament, who risked their lives for the witness of the risen Christ. I think of our missionaries today in lands that are not always welcoming to the message of grace, risking their lives for His sake. The risk of doing something instead of just existing or standing still. The risk of moving forward with my ideas and dreams and hopes for this world. The risk of not giving in to my fear of failure. It's that no risk, indecisiveness that goes against my calling, the writer writes. I can weigh options for just so long before I feel I need to make a decision. I really feel the Lord is cultivating this attitude within us. Now, a clarification, realizing as I speak through this, someone had mentioned that at a time of COVID, when we are shuttered in place, there are calculated risks, of course. Safety is necessary. You don't have to leave your home to take risks for Christ. You don't have to unmask or to enter into a non-distanced encounter with the world, to encounter that decision of investing who you are in Christ in the world. So I'll just have that disclaimer going forward. Be sheltered, be safe, but don't bury your heart or your faith, and do not hold back your love. You can invest love in other ways. So following Jesus is a call to risk calculatedly. Our agendas, our convenience, lay down our very lives. The cross speaks to us of risk. Loving a world for God's sake calls us into a world to risk all. And that risk is risking our own agendas and risking our own comfort. Even in a time of pandemic, we should not bury our gift, bury our faith. For the gospel today calls us into an investment in our brothers and sisters, our siblings, an investment in this world in the name of love. And the willingness to live into the beloved community. Throughout the week, I've been reading a lot of Martin Luther King Jr., and he is one who exemplifies for me someone who took this talent, okay? In our gospel, it's money, but in the parable of our lives, it's love, it's justice, it's the willingness to invest all that we are into creating the beloved community. And that's where I hear in King's word to believe in a higher love and a higher truth, in a higher community. And so this is our gospel. In dismantling white supremacy, poverty, to build the beloved community, to risk our own reputation. So Jesus calls us to risk investing God's priceless love that has been given to us, to give it away and to build a better world. Such is the call of the gospel today. I mean, you'll notice that each person gets a portion according to their ability. So there's no cookie cutter way. Risk is appropriately proportioned to that in which we are, who we are, and what we have. Not all risks are created equal. Risk of investment in this world, in other human beings, there is accountability in the invitation. Heck, I would say distancing and masking is investing in our brothers and sisters in our community. Not all of this world. We don't have to surrender to the world of isolating our hearts from each other. In our lessons, as we approach the coming Advent season, there is a sense of urgency in this. Imperative. The time that the Master gives the servants is the time that they are called upon to do all they can to invest that gift so that when the Master comes back, he receives a multiplicity of what the Master gave in the first place. That is our call, to give back to God the multiplication of the love, the faith, the hope that is given to us. So how are you spending your time these days? If we are living in the already of Christ's first coming, this not yet time of the church, in the anticipation of the coming of Christ, we are called accountable to what Christ has given us. And so, I'm reminded of a dialogue in The Lord of the Rings, Tolkien's Lord of the Rings, between Frodo, who is this young hobbit who's charged with this task that is overwhelming him. And he talks to Gandalf, who is this spiritual character, this larger-than-life character that guides him. And the dialogue goes, "I wish it need not have happened in my time," said Frodo. "So do I," said Gandalf, "and so do all who live to see such times. But that is not for them to decide. All we have to decide is what to do with the time that is given to us." I hear the gospel ringing through this. That we have to decide what to do with this time given to us. That we cannot complain of our lack. We don't bury our heads in the sand. We don't take what God is giving us and hide in some bunker and wait until the coast is clear. That we have to enter this world and invest God's grace and God's love to the best of our ability, even in a pandemic. All we have to decide is what to do with the time that is given us. Time is a talent. It is a gift. It is priceless. So a talent, I would expand that. And what is your talent? What is that gift that of beyond compare that God has given you? Your faith, love, compassion, mercy, justice, all of that plays into what God has given us. Trusting and believing and visioning what could be, believing that we are participating in the beloved community is how we live into this call of Christ for this time. Each of us is given a measure, and that measure within each of us is a calling to invest it, to let it go, to give it away, and multiply it, not to hoard it, not to bury it. And that is the question each of us must ask. The question for us is, how much are we willing to risk on behalf of the other? Even in a pandemic. Risk. We are accountable for the measure of faith and love and hope and time and talents and treasure. We are accountable to that measure for how we invest them in a world hungering and thirsting for justice and equity and hope. It'll all be the difference between life and death, even beyond the pandemic. This must be given away, this gift. What do we risk when we invest love for such a time as this? Sure, we can risk judgment, attack, failure. loss. But there's no excuse. Even the pandemic is no excuse. We need to activate our investment of God. Investing in the reign of God now means to use what God has given you. The time to invest your love, your passion, your commitment to justice. Even to your enemy in your community. The Master calls us to invest, invest, invest. When you risk loving, the offering is multiplied, allowing more love to be shared, more forgiveness to be given, more compassion to be offered. To bury love, or to withhold love, or to deny the time that God has given you, is to deny the investment, and it only hurts you. The central message then. And I'll close with these words because I come back to Martin Luther King Jr. Because in that investing in justice, especially now, his whole focus in the last years of his life was the moral imperative to love. And that is the beloved community. And so to me, if we're investing in anything, we are investing in creating a new order, a new way of being humanity. So, in quoting, he writes, "Love is the only force capable of transforming an enemy into a friend. Investment. Darkness cannot drive out darkness, only light can do that. Hate cannot drive out hate, only love can do that. Investment. Every human, every man and woman must decide whether he or she will walk in the light of creative altruism or in the darkness of destructive selfishness." That embodies our gospel. Investment. And so, siblings, but you, beloved, are not in darkness, our lesson says today, for that day to surprise you like a thief. For you are all children of light, children of the day. We are not of the night or of the darkness. So let us not fall asleep as others do, but let us keep awake and be sober. Investment. We need to get out of ourselves, even in a pandemic, even in a political world we find ourselves in. We need to be the beloved community the best way we can. Wearing a mask is a part of that response. For to all, I'll close, of those who have, more will be given, and they will have an abundance. And is the joy of God, participating in that joy is what our investment is. But for those who have nothing, even what they have will be taken away. So, let us risk love, invest love, multiply love, because standing still is not an option. Amen.